here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings and salutations and welcome back to Outside the Sheds. Shedheads, before I go any farther, I just want to let all of you know I am not a castaway. I am not on a boat anywhere. If any of you have heard around the world, we had really bad flooding down here where I'm located in Texas. But I did not have to put my floaties on my arms. I am totally fine. And Mother Nature has granted us with it being over 100 degrees today. So, just to balance out, I haven't floated away, but I might bake to death in the next couple of days in the great state of Texas. I digress. How are all of you? Welcome back to the show. Besides the fact that Mother Nature's wreaked havoc in a lot of people's lives, we are still standing strong here in the bunker, and we're ready for another great episode of Outside the Sheds. Now, one of the things that gets us through tough times is when we get set with a mentality of something to accomplish. And we just got to watch 8 games of teams, which I don't know even what to say, Shedheads. We had teams that I thought for sure were going to win that decided not to win. We had teams that have now started to get up off the canvas that we thought were down for the standing 8 count. It just continues to be as the world turns. And that was a note to my mother right now, who used to love her soap operas. But it's been insane. It started out round 20 exactly the same way that we're just talking about, where we just cannot, you got a big fight coming up in Australia. Timmy Zoo's back in there. He's got maybe the biggest fight of his career. He's going up against a guy that's a straight beast. But the one thing about boxing, and if you know anything about it, is you want to get your feet planted, because if you can never get your feet planted in a fight, there's no way you're knocking anybody out, and you're probably going to get knocked out because you can't get your feet planted. And that is what the NRL is doing to us right now. It's not allowing for us to be able to plant our feet because we don't know what's going to happen. For sure, matches do not follow through. I know that we went 4 for 8 last week with our picks, and I was rolling. I was thinking, maybe I'm going 7 for 8 after the Penrith game. And then the wheels fell off. I'm on 2 donuts in the back right now of my car. We're still, picking at a 65% clip. We're 77 of 118. But I'm telling you, I'm happy I'm not making a living as a pundit, as a guy that's trying to put down a little bit of coin to keep the house lights on, if you know what I mean. But let's go into round 20. Let's kind of go into the deep dive of what we're talking about here. And it started off Thursday night. Broncos 14, Panthers 12, in horrible rainy conditions. And you know that even though they're a team that can win in any condition, you knew that this was probably, even though they look good in the collared shirts, you knew that this was going to be a tougher game for the Panthers. They always have tussles when they go up against the Brisbane Broncos. Heck, the Bronx actually cost them their season last year in the finals. But I'll say this right now. I don't think they can do it, but that was Madge's probably best team he's put on the field for quite a long time. And the thing that really resounded was Reece Walsh looking like he understands, no matter if Adam Reynolds is on the field. Adam Reynolds is also turning into the Tin Man, I think, because I think every 5 times they show him, he's trying to put oil on one of his hinges, trying to get a leg going or an arm going. And I'm really starting to think he is 50% Tin Man. That being said, Reece Walsh, it's a lot of games they have to win. They've got to win their next 7 in a row. And for a team to go on that type of roll when they've played lackluster footy all season, it's hard to see that happening because you just don't have a moment where you can actually lay the baton down just for a little bit to take a breath. You've gotten rid of that ability to be able to do that. But if this team can stay healthy, and that's the problem, I think that's where they're going to run into their situation, is because for them to go on a run of 7 for 7 to try to get into the finals, they're going to have to stay healthy the entire time period. And you tell me one footy squad that plays 7 games in a row that does not get any type of injuries or ailments or corks or anything like that. It's unheard of. Especially when you're getting to the part of the season when everybody is going Odyssey on each other, meaning steel cage match. It is almost an impossibility. And everybody knows if Reece Walsh goes down for a week or two, knock on wood, no one wants that to happen, they're really done. And I just don't see him being able to put this team on his shoulder for 7 straight weeks and carrying them. I know he had a big run last year. I know where they were at the half point of the season. But to do it back-to-back years like that is the word monumental isn't putting it in high enough stratosphere of how incredible that would be. But they did get the victory over the Panthers. I think what you're seeing with Penrith is you're seeing a club that's coming off of the highs of Origin. You know, Cleary, these guys are coming back, finally lifting the trophy at Suncorp. They're trying to get back mentally into that day-to-day, week-to-week grind. And I think you'll see them playing really good footy this weekend. I just don't think that they were where they needed to be mentally to take on a hungry and back against the wall Brisbane Broncos side. And that cost them. I know Ivan Cleary, the way that he coaches, his thought mentality on this team. He knows the buttons to push to get them going. He will get them going again. And I think, unfortunately, if you're a blue and gold fan, that might not be good for you guys in a matter of hours. But Broncos get a big victory. Now the question is, we get on this big roller coaster ride to see if they can continue to hold it together and somehow miraculously pull off 7 straight wins. Sharks 20, Knights 18. I said it had the potential to be the match of the round. It kind of lived up to it. And the crazy part about it is the Sharkies get the victory and they score one less try than the Knights. And that is all because Ponga's boot was off. He just missed some kicks that he really normally would knock down. And it cost Newcastle. And this is the first time we've kind of seen, I don't know, I don't want to say that a hole in the game or kind of a step back for them, because it happens. Yeah, you know, these guys are all human beings, even though they are elite athletes, but you're just not going to stay on top of the world all the time. But, you know, I think Justin Holbrook is still going to be somewhat pleased with this team, even though they didn't come out with the victory, how hard they battled, and that they did enough to win the game. They just didn't do enough to really lock it fully down to get it. Katoa, this guy's on fire right now. 6 tries in the last 4 games. Cronulla, slowly grinding, slowly getting those kinks out as I move my little shoulder waggle right there. But I'm telling you right now, the Cronulla Sharks see the top 2. They see the possibility of finishing for sure in the top 4. It's going to be interesting to see if this team can hold this level of play for the remainder of the season. They did find a way. It's been pretty silky for them the last few weeks, and this was a grind. This was a real competition that they had to face a Newcastle team that was as hungry as they were, and they still came out on top. Really interesting to see. But I think both teams are going the right direction. We did the breakdown a couple weeks ago. We know the Newcastle Knights have the tougher road. I think they can still get definitely in the 8. Top 4 is going to be tough. But Cronulla, to me, is that team that you just don't want to face. Don't get in the shallow waters. Don't get in the shallow waters. Big victory for the Sharks. Roosters 14, Storm 6. The Chookies finally breaking that hoodoo. Finally getting over on the Melbourne Storm. Even though you gotta go hats off for Melbourne. They really, you know, they both halves are out, and they still, you know, we know Wishart is a good player. I think the Bears are really lucky to get him next season. But you don't expect him to be a game-breaking guy without, you know, playing week in and week out like he's going to be able to do probably next season for Perth. But they just find a way. There's something about the Storm and the way they match up against the Roosters that is just not good for the Sydney Roosters. It just isn't. And even though they did get the victory, they sweat late. They look like me in hot yoga, and that's not good ever. I'm a puddle. And that's what they look like. They were sweating late because if Nick Meaney doesn't drop that ball, you start to wonder what the outcome might have been for that game. And then you have that horrible moment where, and we're going to go into this in the deep dive because I really have some questions and I want to kind of break this down with you guys. But Will Walberg going down with that Achilles injury, and watching on this young man's face the look of total despair that he knows that he put a Storm jersey on for the last time because he will be at the Rumble Owls next year. He'll be with the Waz. And it's sad seeing somebody not being able to go out on their own terms. We already know this team is fighting for their finals lives. And he's not even going to be able to help his boys finish out this journey. Really heartbreaking. Really, really heartbreaking. But congratulations to the Roosters. I love seeing Cody Ramsey playing the game and the style of footy he's able to play right now. I think the guy is starting to get that speed back we saw at St. George years ago. Just sad for him that Teddy's going to be back in the lineup this weekend, so he will be out of that fullback role. But he's definitely held his own the last few weeks in that number 1 jersey. Raiders 34, Rabbitohs 24. Green Machine bring the wood early. They had it in 5th gear right out of the gate, and they look strong, going up 28-6 at the halftime. The Bunnies did everything they possibly could, but you just cannot give up unless you're the Brisbane Broncos in the finals last year. You're not being able to give that much of a lead to a team or that much of a score to a team and think that you're going to run them down. You're just not going to be able to do it. And unfortunately, South Sydney had to find that out the hard way, no matter how valiantly they came. I said that it was going to be a tough match for them coming off the festivities for Jairo's birthday last weekend, and it very much was for them. And then we had another thing. I told you we're going to go in the deep dive here in a second, but another Achilles injury, Hudson Young going down, and you're just like, what is happening right now? Even though I know that it was on separate days, it was back-to-back games where you watch a key player go down with this injury. Again, we're going to talk about that in a second, but now Jack Whiten is 0-4 going up against his old team, and you know that's got to be playing a lot in the back of his mind. Not saying that he, I don't think, regrets the move to going to South Sydney, but when you lose time and time again against the team you left, it makes it very, very tough. But, hey, let's talk about the Green Machine for a second. This team is starting to believe. This team starts to envision themselves fighting back into this finals contention. I'll say something right now. We talk a lot about Origin. We talk about watching guys go into the Origin arena and then coming out men. Let's just say it that way. And you really start to see that by Strange. Ethan Strange is a young guy still, very much a young guy. But the look in his eye after doing this 6 weeks of Origin, he now sees himself as one of the best halves in the competition. He now sees himself as a guy that can be the difference maker for his club, because he was a difference maker for his state. You just see he's the same guy physically, but the look in his eye is totally different. And I think that's why you cannot stress enough how much Origin changes a player when they get to that stage. And I really think that this is going to help the Green Machine going forward, and really is going to help them for their push for that final spot. And I really do feel there's only going to be one spot up for grabs that all these teams are going to be fighting for to get into the 8. I think that 7 is pretty much going to be locked down. It's going to be a fight for the 8th position. But going back to Ethan Strange, it's really interesting to watch just the look in his eyes, the way that he carries himself out there. He's always been a confident young man. But Origin, he's got Origin eyes now. And I cannot wait to see what the rest of the season looks like for the Green Machine. Warriors 20, Dragons 12. Even though the Dragons continue to improve, which definitely had some results later, which we're going to talk about in the 40-20, the Waz still hold serve at home. And the thing about the New Zealand Warriors, and it's so crazy watching where this team has come from, even since I started watching the game in 2010. And I remember Sean Johnson in 11, Manu Vatuvei. I think he was rocking a big fro when I first saw him in my first Waz match in 2010. But how much this team has changed, their philosophy, their mentality, how hard they play. You just don't have that lackadaisical mindset that you used to get with Warriors teams before, where this team was just a destructive force, but they sometimes were you caught like a little kid looking at the little flowers or a little insect in the ground and not paying attention to the game, right? Like you see young kids when they play a sport, right? That's not the case. And this was a trap game. The Dragons have been playing really, really good footy lately. They're fighting for their coach. They're fighting for, giving the Red V fans something to be proud of. And they've been playing really good footy. Again, like I said, we're going to talk about this in the 40-20. But in the past, the Waz would have found a way to allow them to stay in the game and not be able to close it down. And they would have lost a heartbreaking game, which might have cost them at the end of the season. It might have cost them a top 8 position and a finals berth. And that's not what we get anymore with this team. That's not what we get anymore with the Waz. They may not win every game, but you're not going to blow them out of the park. You're not going to not see them lock in. And if you do get the victory, it might cost you next week because of the fight you're going to have to do to get that victory. It's really fun to see, and it's why they're now only 2 points out of first in the competition. They are nipping at Penrith's heels. Gonna be a fun stretch to watch these two teams going at it. And then they'll don't think they're not paying attention that Cronulla's starting to sneak up from the rear as well. So big victory for the Waz. Again, this team looks like they can do something. And I know there's some people, Bulldog Richie doesn't think that he doesn't have faith in them. You're crazy if you don't. Because I think that they can beat any team in the competition. And that's just not a team you want to see down the track when the finals time come around. Bulldogs 32, Tigers 0. The Tigers slide continues. I really don't even know what to make of this match. It was very, very disappointing. You know that I'm already a little upset because I picked the Tigers to rebound and to really show something. It is the Lachlan Galvin Bowl. I know it's been a while since Lockie's played with the Tigers. But, Sean O'Sullivan coming in the halves, I like Sean O'Sullivan a lot. I think he probably should stay in the halves personally, and that's nothing against Critter. But I'll say this right now. There's no reason that the Dogs should have won 32-0. And that doesn't take anything away from what the Bulldogs did or how they've been playing. But as a professional side that lost the week before, that's on a slide, that's finals hopes were you need to win this game, very disappointing. Very, very disappointing. And yes, I'm not going to take the chocolates away from the Canterbury Bulldogs because they went out there and did what they needed to do, right? And they did it well. Matty Burton is looking incredible in the centers. But I'm really saying this right now. You really have to say it's more of a disappointment for the West Tigers, the performance they had. And I think you're seeing the frustrations come out a little bit because when have we ever seen Alex Twal look like he wanted to rip somebody's head off, right? And no matter what happened in the situation of fire him up, when have we ever seen Twally ever lose his mind and want to just eat somebody for lunch, dinner, and breakfast at the same time, right? I think it's compounding. I think a lot of this stuff is going to continue to build. It's going to be interesting, blooding in this new half, possibly with Dewey, because Dewey was up for suspension. He got off. but I do think that the young blood is going to get in this week in the halves and play sometime. And what does that mean going forward? I don't think you can bench Adam Dewey. He's probably going to sit this week, but we do know Adam Dewey is one hard tackle away from having reconstructive shoulder surgery now, compared to having reconstructive shoulder surgery, say that 12 times straight, in 3 months, because that's got to happen. And you start to wonder, as soon as they fall out of finals contention and they're mathematically eliminated, do they shut Dewey down for the season so we can go have that surgery so he's 100% ready and locked and loaded to go for Vegas here in just a matter of months? So it's going to be interesting to see where this team goes, how they play this week. Huge match against the Raiders this week. We know how the Green Machine's going. You definitely can't say the Tigers are the favorite in that one, but they better show something, and they better show something quickly, because that performance was very, very, very unsettling, to put it plain and simple. Titans 38, Seagulls 32, down 10-0. The Phins go straight flipper, breach, do a backflip out of the water as they went through a flaming hoop, because that's what we watched. Because what a freaking game. Now, Shedheads, I have no idea what just happened. Titans 38, Seagulls 32. I looked at the Dolphins and I got so excited about seeing that, I skipped right over. Sorry about that, Maddie. I'm sorry about that. We've got to give you your luster, because the Titans, yes, that's right, the Maximus Titans, down 10-0. Same thing, just different team. Getting off the carpet, coming right back at them, getting a big victory. What do you say? I know Kieran Foran is really starting to think, so this is coaching. And I don't want to say it came easy to him in the beginning, but boy, they came out of the blocks fast when Foss took over. But these are the moments that makes things difficult in the world of coaching. Because for whatever reason, the defensive side has just fallen off, and they just can't seem to stay dialed in and locked in. Then it gets even worse, because Turbo goes down, Tom Trbojevic. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, what do you say about that? 9 hamstring injuries this man has had, Jedheads. 9. 5 for one leg, 4 for the other. 9. And what makes this last hamstring injury so perplexing and so worrisome is he wasn't even trying to get up to full speed. He wasn't in full stride. He was juggling a ball to make a catch, and it just went on him. And if that doesn't scare you being an athlete, when you're a top-tier sports car and you keep throwing a rod like that for your engine, yeah. And like I said, I've never met Turbo, but everybody who has said he's just a straight guy, a straight cool dude. But to watch him walking off the field for that injury, and the way that he laid face down on the field when it happened, I think really in a microcosm, that is what Manly has been like the last few weeks. Just staring straight into the grass, head down, not understanding what the heck is going on. Yes, we're talking about Tom's body, but Manly has been like this for a little bit of time. So, really heartbreaking scenes of watching him walk off, and now they're saying that he's gone at least a month, 4 to 6 weeks, which pretty much takes him out of the regular season for Manly. Now, fortunately for the Seagulls, and for a guy that's had 9 hamstring injuries, they've learned how to win now without Tom. And that's something Manly could not do early on. When Tom would go down, they would go right to the skids. That's not the case anymore. Tom Trbojevic has been out, unfortunately, of the lineup so often now, Manly knows how to play without him. And they played pretty well without him during this season, too. So if you're a Manly fan, yes, it stinks, but you're not gloom and doom like you used to be when Turbo went down. On the flip side, look at these Gold Coast Titans. This is a team now that has their halves pairings together that, okay, I know Josh Heine is not happy with the defensive performance. They do let water in, like Texas just let water in. But they're showing grit and determination. They're showing that they believe they can play with anybody. And once they get this defensive mindset down of what they need to do to actually close and win these matches, yeah. You know, when I was talking to the Frizzels, you know, in Vegas, they were very, very happy and intrigued and excited after what they saw in the preseason, what this guy has got this team mentally focused, and they're just in a different headspace right now. And it's showing. I'm saying, let's not forget, this is a team that beat the Panthers. They go to Fortress Brookvale, and they get a, you know, they're a strong club, and they're only going to get better. The combinations are only going to get stronger, and when they start winning these matches like they are starting to do, belief is so much in the game. It's so much in the game. And I think that's what you're seeing with the Titans. So, big victory for them. It's going to be interesting to see, again, how Manly performs without Tom in the lineup. And for sure, you know, if he's done for the season, which it looks like he probably is. I don't see them trying to rush him back, especially with, you know, the history of his ailments in the hamstring department. So, congratulations to the Titans. Big victory. Now, Shedheads, let's start talking about Flipper. And those Phins, those Dolphins. 36-16, Dolphins over the Cowboys. After last week's flogging that they took, the Flippers, the Phins, get it together, coming back in a Queensland Derby, in a match that both teams needed this. Both teams needed this. And I know Toddy Payton was really doubling down with his squad that, hey, you know, we've got to get this. I will say this. My whole problem, and I don't know if this was planned, I don't know if he had an ailment, I don't understand how Jake Clifford was not in the halves. I don't. He has played such a strong year so far for North Queensland. I do not know how they did not have him in the halves with Tommy Dearden. To me, it makes no sense. That's why I'm hoping that there was something, you know, because we're not privy to all that information. But you're just hoping that, you know, maybe he had a little bit of a little sickness or something. I don't know. Because that really, to me, unsettled. The attack just wasn't the same. That team looked like they were chasing the whole match. And to me, it was all Clifford. It's good to see. I see that they have for the Queensland Derby 2, or it should be number 1 because we know it's the most one, with the Broncos coming to town, that Clifford is back in the halves with Tommy Dearden. But yeah, that surprised me, and I do think that cost North Queensland not having Jake Clifford out there. But you can't take away that the Dolphins put together the performance that they did. Osaka was a man possessed, scoring 20 points of the 36. So Dolphins, congratulations, you're back in the win column, and that was an impressive performance. Like I said, after what they had gone through with the beating they took the last time on the field. Now, Shedheads, we all know that we love rugby league because of the physical game that it is. It's probably maybe some of the number one reason that people fall in love with it. The hard hits, the players leaving it all out there on the line. But we all know that when you play a physical sport, injuries are going to occur. That's just part of it. You cannot run two cars into each other and not think that you're not going to get some fender damage, right? You see what I'm saying? These are not machines. These are human beings. These are soft tissues. These are possibilities of hamstrings, injuries, all that type of stuff. We know that comes with it. But I'll tell you this right now. the injuries that I hate to see, and I think that all of us hate to see, are non-contact injuries. When I blew my knee out playing gridiron, I did a big Brad Fittler dummy step, right? Like I went to put a juke on, I planted to push off, and boom, there goes my knee, right? I can still remember kind of hearing it and just crumbling to the ground, right? I didn't have surgery after the first time I injured my knee. I just tried to let it heal for a long period of time, and then I went back out and I played sport again, and then it tore it again playing soccer. But what I'm saying is, I didn't get hit. Nobody tackled me low. It was just my body giving to an extent, right? But that being said, it's still an injury that makes you never forget it because it was just your body kind of giving out to an extent, right? But I'll say this right now. The thing that's really got me scratching my head right now, and it's becoming something that we're seeing time and time again, and it perplexes me, is the new problem with Achilles ruptures. That Achilles tear, the Achilles tendon, that I will say, truthfully, was never anything when I played sport that I ever worried about. Right? Like I never had a coach, if I had calf tightness, start to talk to me or rest me because he was worried that my Achilles was going to go, possibly, if I went and played right there. I remember having an injured calf and just strapping it as tight as I possibly could strap it and going back out there and playing a key soccer match growing up. And I never once thought about Achilles injury. Never had a coach ever mention Achilles injury. But that's the thing that's now becoming that bugaboo in the room. And we had that. Unfortunately, the game had two of these situations this last weekend. The first one was Will Walbrick going down in the Storms game against the Chooks, and then Hudson Young succumbing to an injury like that for the Green Machine in their victory over the Bunnies. And these are just huge blows. You know, I told you that earlier. You know, that was Walbrick's last time he was ever going to be in a Storm jersey. And when you look at the bigger picture, the Storm need Will Walbrick if they're going to make this run. You know, we know Money's going to be out for a while. I know Hughes is back in the lineup for this weekend, but Will Walbrick is a key attacking member, you know, on the wing for this side. And then we can't even go into the depth that Hudson Young, what he means to the Green Machine, with just grit and hard edge. Just that guy, you know, my God, he scores a try and he punches the ball through the ground, all right? That's the mentality this guy has. And the thing that I can't get over is just how innocuous these Achilles ruptures are. It looks like a player just pushes off to go in a direction, and they just go down like Sniper just took them. They go right down, and they just made a step, and it just doesn't get away. I just can't get my head around it, because I remember the first player that I ever saw go down with an Achilles injury that I can remember was Kobe Bryant, and I just was kind of like, well, what's going on? And I remember talking to a lot of people when it happened, and most people were kind of like I was. They were like, really? An Achilles? This is an athlete that's all he does. I'm saying that the dunking and pushing off for a set shot, blah, 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 right? And Kobe Bryant goes down with that. And if any of you know anything about Kobe Bryant, his workouts are legendary. Like, he was the hardest working guy on the Lakers the entire time he played. All right, that's just who Kobe Bryant was. So it wasn't anything about him not being in shape. It wasn't anything about him taking days off, you know, like the great Bill Belichick would say, no days off. Exactly. It was nothing like that. It was just, okay, this happened. And then it just seems like after that Kobe injury, all these guys started going down because you lost Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum for the Celtics, went down, and then Tyrese Halliburton went down. And I know these are all basketball players, but what sport does more running besides maybe soccer and Aussie rules football than basketball? It's just up and down the court, right? You're known for doing quick starts, quick stopping, going the other direction, blah, blah, blah. You know that, right? No matter if you haven't played basketball, you've watched enough going, okay, yeah, it's up and down the court. And that's when we first started to really realize there's something off about this. So I started to do a little bit of research, and I started looking around. In the last 10 years, the NRL has averaged 4 to 6 Achilles ruptures per season. Think about that for a second. 4 to 6 Achilles ruptures a season. That's 45 to 55 Achilles ruptures they've had in the last 10 years playing the game. That seems to me like crazy numbers. Crazy numbers. And it's, again, the most baffling thing in the world is it's just the innocuous push-off. Like you would never think anything of it. And all of a sudden you just kind of notice a guy just went down and there's kind of a blank look on the player's face. Like, what just happened? And now it started to happen so much, guys know, oh my God, that was my Achilles that just went. So just thinking about that, 4 to 6, okay, let's do that, 4 to 6 a season. That means we're looking at having one to two to three more players going down this season with an Achilles rupture if we're going to keep going with the average that we just talked about. So then you start going back, and you know Mrs. Shedadamas is in the medical field, and you start asking this question: is it load performance is causing this? Is it medicines, pre-workouts, supplements? Is it, because right now science and the body are so in tune right now with dietitians and people understanding how important stretching is and all of that. But this is still happening. And you would have to think science is so far advanced now, knowing about the human body and what works and what doesn't work. But now you start seeing guys rested 6 weeks because of calf tightness. And the reason they rest them for that long is because they're worried that calf tightness could lead to a ruptured Achilles. And again, this is just nothing that I ever thought about growing up, playing sports, watching sports, was that a guy was going to go down with an Achilles tear or an Achilles rupture. But I'll say this right now. With those numbers that we just talked about, that we could expect 1 to 3 more guys going down this season for an Achilles rupture, in the time of year that we're in right now, going into the finals, it's perplexing and it's scary because some team probably is going to have the chance of really losing everything they played for because a big guy or a main player could go down with this type of injury. But hey, here's to a speedy recovery and rehab for both Hudson Young and Will Walbrick because it's going to be interesting. I think everybody was excited to see Will Walbrick playing for the Waz next year, and we know what Hudson Young means to the Green Machine. So just something for you guys to think about that I just could not stop my mind going over these Achilles injuries that are happening in the game and how you just cannot see them actually coming. So that's what my deep dive was this week, was just kind of that breakdown of the body and the injury. Now, as we go into the 40-20, it's been a rough couple of seasons for the Red V. But hey, you cannot stay down at the bottom of the ocean for the rest of your life, right? And it looks to me like the Red V is pushing off the bottom of the ocean and is heading towards the surface to get some air. They've won 2 of their last 6 matches, but let's be honest, they've been in the fight for each one of those matches, except for that kind of blowout loss to the Sharkies in their derby. And it all comes down to me is the recommittal to defense, and then the young and promising front row that have given the fans something to be really, really excited about down in the Red V country. But I will say this right now. the change of fortune has been noticed by the higher-ups of the joint venture, as they like to call it, the joint venture. And this has resulted in some huge news that just broke a couple days ago, and that is St. George saying, Dean Young, you're our guy. And I have to admit, I don't have a dog in the fight. I just watch this and I report it, and okay, let's be honest, I lived this to come back to you guys. But I was really excited to hear that Dean Young got this job, because I know what he was handed, and no matter how much I like Shane Flanagan and how much it was an honor to meet him years ago, I guess 17, I think that's when I met him, he just kind of lost the plot with St. George. I don't want to say the guys weren't playing for him, but it just wasn't working. That's what you can say. It just was not working. And Dean Young has come in, he's poked, he's prodded, he's pulled, he's done everything he can to get the best out of this side. And I think when you started knowing things were really coming and going in a different direction, it was when you started to hearing the playing group saying what Dean means to them, how he's come in and changed the mentality in the sheds. And you can see by the results on the field, guys want to be there and guys are playing extremely hard for him. And that tells you everything. Yes, I know that the club wishes they had a few more victories to make that decision of saying, Dean, you're our guy going forward. But you can't take away how this team has looked. They have looked impressive. Ask the Waz. Like I said earlier, if it was the Waz for a couple of years ago, the Dragons probably come over the top of them. They pushed them all the way to the end. And that's why, to me, it's such a good and heartwarming story that Dean Young has been given the reins to be the head coach for St. George, the full-time coach going forward. It's a 2-year deal, and this allows Young to go in there and to really apply his vision and ideology into this playing group. And we've already seen what it started to do with this club. The buy-in, Valentine Holmes is starting to play a lot better footy. But what's really exciting, if you're a fan of the Red V, is 2027. Because listen to these guns coming in. Keon Kolomatangi, Phil Sammy, Connor Watson, Luke Metcalf, Drinkwater, which every time I hear Scott Drinkwater is going to be playing for the Dragons, I kind of look over my shoulder like I'm looking at North Queensland going, really? Because that doesn't make any sense to me. But it does make sense if you're a Dragons fan, because you'd be crazy not to want Scott Drinkwater on your team. Because to me, he's a game-changing player. But all those guys are coming to the club in 2027. So you hear people, you hear some of the big wigs talking. Dean Young kind of tries to downplay it. But I think this team has a real chance to be to make the finals in 2027. It is a smoky. I'm not saying I'm putting my Car's title on the line here, but those are some key pieces. And if you get the buy-in that the rest of the playing group already has, and you start putting in some real strike in the offense and some real guys that are ready for the challenge, ready for the grind, that spine's going to be totally different with Metcalf and Drinkwater in it. So times are coming for St. George. And I want to say congratulations to Dean Young, because I know the hard work the man's put in. And I think that he, by every means, deserves the chocolates that he's getting right now. So, Red V, good times are coming. Now, Shedheads, I'm going to say something right now. We're going in to talk about the NRL judiciary. And it's come down hard this week on 2 players. And I have a problem with one of them, which we're going to go into. But let's go into the 2 cases we're talking about. Fainu, I just called Fainu, received a 3-week ban for a grade 3 dangerous contact for his tackle that flipped Leo Thompson. And then David Fafita receiving a grade 2 dangerous contact charge for his Rockettes high kick from his back towards Hudson Young's head. Now, as we think about the two, I will say right off the bat, the Rockettes kick was ridiculous. All right. Yes, David Fafita, that seems very, very steep that he got a two-game ban for that. But I'm going to say something right now. I don't know what you're doing, David Fafita. Like, you're a big, big guy, right? And your legs flailing up in the air like that, the only thing that's going to do is cause damage if you make contact with anybody. I have to admit, I haven't seen a guy go Rockettes like that from his back, maybe ever. So, hellcat, that was dangerous. And I think it is a steep penalty, but I guarantee you're not going to ever see him do that again. I don't care how well he might shave his legs, which I don't know if he shaved his legs. That was a joke. But those games aren't going to be flying up in the air again like that. So, I understand that. But the one that I'm not down with at all is the Fainu. 3-game suspension for that tackle? 3 games. Are you going to try to tell me that some of the other tackles I've seen this season have maybe got a ban? That tackle was worse than that? Fainu went down low. He went hard into the quads of Leo, of Thompson as he was coming towards him. And last time I checked, when a guy's got immense size on you and you're a little half, you go and attack the legs. You don't attack the knees, but you go in to make a tackle at the legs. And to me, that's what happened. I don't know, is it the fact that Leo Thompson went over him and it looked so extravagant as he went over the top of Fainu, but that's not really, there was no lifting. It was just gravity as he hit a guy low and not too low, and he went over him. I listened to some guys I really respect talk about this tackle, and no player has stood up and said that that was a horrible, malicious, dirty play. Nobody. And that's because you have to be smart and look at the two pieces. If Gordon, if Gordy goes in and makes a tackle like that at a guy, that is totally different, right? Because he's going low. But for Fainu, who's already way down there anyway, he's got to stop a runaway freight train, and that's what he did. He hit the guy in the quads, and then the extravagant falling over the top of him happened. And what bothers me about it is the NRL is so tough right now in protecting the head. Got no problem with that. I do think it's ridiculous when you notice a guy falls and a guy is in right position. If the guy's head falls into your arms, that you get penalized for that. I think that is bogus. I don't think that's right whatsoever. And with technology that we have right now, and we don't want any more stoppages of the game. I understand that. But I don't understand how you can penalize a guy when a guy slips and falls into your arm, right? It doesn't make any sense to me. So you don't want anybody to take any type of contact above the shoulders, into the neck, head area. Cool. All right. Like I said, besides the freak occurrence that happens that I don't believe in, okay, I understand we want to protect the head. But now are we saying we can't go to the legs? And whoa, before we go any farther, shitheads, please do not come at me that was a cannonball tackle. That wasn't a Steve Matai coming in from the side, aiming towards your ankle and just totally blowing up your knee. Because that's not what that was whatsoever. So please don't try that with me. And I love Steve Matai, but I understand you can't do that, right? And that's the thing that I always freaked out, is when a guy's being held up and a guy used to come in there and cannonball at the legs. That is not what occurred with Fainu. That's not what occurred. So to me, it again makes the NRL kind of look like they're trying to set precedent. They're trying to protect players. But in a physical game, like we talked about just a couple minutes ago, with the reason we love the NRL is for the rough physical play. Let's just be honest. That was not a dirty play, and I cannot believe that the guy got three-match ban for that. To me, at worst, he should have been fined. That's it. Throw a $1,500 fine at him, be done with it. He already got 10 minutes in the bend during the game. So, yeah, I have a real problem with that decision, and I do think that it's 100% ludicrous. So, hey, Shedheads, you guys want me to give my opinion? That's why you're here. There's your Shedadamas shooting from the hip on that one. Now, I got to say, we've talked a lot about injuries on this show, and unfortunately, we're going to have to finish the 40-20 talking about more of this because, Shedheads, I'm saying this right now, it's tough. David Lindsay, my brother, the voice that calls in your Shedadamas every episode, I'm sorry. Because right now, I would not touch a South Sydney jersey with my finger right now if you paid me. Because the unluck that's going with this club due to injuries just continues to happen. Because the boys from Redfern just got dealt another huge blow to their finals aspirations because they just came down. The captain Cameron Murray and Tallis Duncan are both out for this weekend's games and going forward for a little bit of time. Murray will be out 3 to 4 weeks with a calf strain. And what does that do? What did we just talk about, Shedheads? They're worried about that Achilles. So you got to rest him. It's a strained calf. Can't play him on that. And then Tallis Duncan, who was just sitting on the couch with Maddie, is out 2 to 3 weeks with a hamstring strain. Man, if you got no luck, well, yeah, I guess you're wearing a South Sydney jersey because this team just cannot stay healthy. They're now going to be without David Fafita because of his Rockettes kick. They're going to be without Tallis Duncan. They're going to be without their captain Cameron Murray. And then news starting to swirl that they could be without Latrell Mitchell for the rest of the season. And I'm going to say this right now. If Latrell is done for the rest of the season, they're done. And I'm sorry to say that because I know you got Jack White and you got Cody. You got a lot of good players. But they've been holding on to get Latrell back in the sheds, firing along with the rest of the guys. And if that is not going to happen, and then with Cameron Murray being out, who a lot of people think might be one of their spiritual leaders because it's him and Latrell, the season's over. It's done. And it's sad because they've started to really play some good footy at times this year. And when they get it together, they look like a really, really good squad and a good side. But there's a certain point where you go, it just becomes insurmountable. We cannot come over the top of that much unlucky situation, injury, whatever you want to say. So it will be interesting to see how they try to progress going forward. But it's going to be a tough few weeks and tough end of the season for South Sydney. So sorry about that, Rabbitohs fans, but we've got to be honest on Outside the Sheds. Now, as we go into the picks for round 21, we've got a Battle of the West that starts off this round in a matter of hours. We get the Panthers versus the Eels. I said earlier, I think they've got their heads back straight. I know Ivan has been pounding that into them. What better game to get them back going, let's finish the season strong, than against our hated foes, the Parramatta Eels. I'm taking the Panthers. I think this game could get bad, and it could get ugly, because I do think the Panthers are going to have a point to prove, and they're going to want to show that they're still the team to beat in this competition. Panthers will win this one in a matter of hours. Friday, Roosters versus the Knights. We get another one, another battle for the top four. This is going to be something special. The Knights have won the last 3 against the Chooks, too. And guess what? I think they make it 4. I'm going with the Knights over the Chooks up in the Hunter. This team is something special to me this year. And it's not that I don't think the Chooks have a good chance of having a special season, too. They're both playing really good footy. But I do think the Knights will find a way to get this one done. Storm versus the Bunnies. Well, after the news I just broke, I'm going to lean Storm. Hughes is back. Yes, I know Walbrook is back, but I think Nick Meaney is going to have a point to prove after not catching that ball last week. I've got the Storm beating the Bunnies. Saturday, Tigers versus the Raiders. It's going to take me a lot for me to pick the Tigers going forward this season. I just think that they're having such a problem coming to terms with everything they're going up against. And I think the Green Machine is looking strong. I think that they will not, Sticky is not going to let them have a letdown against Benji's boys. I got the Raiders over the Tigers. Warriors versus the Bulldogs. I can't preach about the Waz the way that I did about them not looking at competition like this is a big game week in and week out. And even though the Bulldogs are playing really good footy right now the last couple of weeks, I think the Warriors are the 2026 Warriors, and they will not let down. I've got them beating the Bulldogs. And then we've got the Queensland Derby. What a triple header, though. Wow, what a triple header for Super Saturday. Broncos versus the Cowboys. We know it's on the line. The Broncos have to go on this just gargantuan run. And the Cows now, off the back of Toddy Payton saying everybody hates the Broncos. It's going to be interesting to see. I've got the Cows winning this, though. I think this team, with Clifford back in the halves, understands what they have to do. And what better team would want to put the Broncos on ice and end their season than the North Queensland Cowboys? I got the Cowboys pulling the upset, getting the victory. And maybe it's not an upset. They're the higher-ranked team. Sunday, Titans versus the Dragons. This is going to be a really good game, Shedheads. This is going to be a very, very good game. It may not be a game that's going to be a battle for a top 8 position, but you're going to see these two teams who know that they can both win this game, leaving it all out there. But I've got the Titans. I like that halves combination. I'm a big Campbell fan. I think the Titans get this victory, even though it's on the road. And finally, another game that, it did take a change with Turbo going out, but Sharks versus Sea Eagles. Manly've got to get this victory, but I am all on the Sharks bandwagon. Heck, it's Shark Week in a matter of weeks, right? Isn't it? Or is it past already? I don't know. I love myself some Shark Week. But to me, it's always Shark Week in my life. It doesn't always have to be Cronulla Shark Week, but I love Sharks. I'm taking Cronulla to beat the Manly Sea Eagles. I just think this team knows who they are now, and they're going to continue to play this way all the rest of the season. I've got the Panthers, the Knights, the Storm, the Raiders, the Warriors, the Cowboys, the Titans, and the Sharks. And my gun of the round, man, it's really crazy to think that this guy's only got a matter of weeks left in a Phins jersey before he begins his trek down to Melbourne. But I got Jermaine Asako. This guy putting up 20 points himself in their match last weekend. 2 tries, 6 for 6 conversions, 144 running meters, 2 line breaks, 4 tackle breaks, 2 tackles made. What a performance by Jermaine Asako. And he played with a somewhat battered shoulder that he kind of tweaked on one of his tries as he did a Superman dive to get that one. So one of my favorite players to watch, Jermaine Asako. Big time player. So congratulations to him being the gun of the round. Shedheads, again, remember, I am your yogi too. So get some stretching into your life as you go to attack this weekend. But we've got some great matchups. Battle of the West just in a matter of hours. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. You know how I always say it. But until next week, my friends, stay safe. This has been Outside the Sheds. I'm your host, Corey Jackson. See ya.
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends and show them what Australian sport is all about.